special edition. Today we are going in Britain territory, America territory. We're going to concentrate on Rabbi Dr. David de Sola Pool, or also he's known as Reverend Dr. David de Sola Pool, you could say. He was a British-born American rabbi. He was a scholar. He was an author. He was and a civic leader also. Let's just say he is considered to be one of the leading 20th century Sephardic rabbis in the United States of America. And he was a world leader in his field, let's just say, in the Jewish sphere, respectively. Now, I believe he was born on May the 16th, in the year 1885, in London, in England, the United Kingdom. He would go and pass away in 1970, to be precise, the 1st of December. He was 85 years of age, and he passed away, I'm not sure the Hebrew date where exactly he passed away. I think it was, so we'll just need confirmation on that. But he was a great rabbi. I thought we will speak about him for a few minutes. We're trying to go through many of the rabbis that actually came from these different spheres of areas, especially from America, and explore the life of the famous rabbi. Now, he was born in London, in England, and he was descended from an old and renowned family of rabbis and scholars, the de Sola family, which traces its origins back to medieval Spain. Now, it's actually quite interesting. His great-grandparents was most notably Rabbi David de Aaron de Sola, a rabbi we've spoken about before. He passed away himself in the year 1860. He was a rabbi and an author. He was born in Amsterdam, and he happened to be the son of Rabbi Aaron de Sola, respectively. I think his great-grandmother was Rabbinitz Rebecca Maldola, who happened to be another famous Spanish-Portuguese family of rabbis in of itself. Now, his great-grandfather was Chacham Rafael Maldola. He was, I believe, the chief rabbi of the Spanish-Portuguese community in the United Kingdom, representing the Sephardi community. He was related to various other rabbis from this rabbinic, let's say, family. Most notably, Rabbi Avram de Sola. He was an Orientalist. He was an academic. He was from a family. He was one, let's say, the foremost leaders of his time in the early days in North American Jewry and Orthodox Jewry, especially in the latter half of the 19th century. Another rabbi was related to Rabbi Henry Pereira Mendez. I think he himself happened to be from Birmingham in England and would also be prominent in New York City. He was known also as Chaim Pereira Mendez, rabbi. And another one of his relatives, Rabbi Frederick de Sola Mendez, another rabbi, author, editor. So he came from very decorated looks at rabbinic scholarship family, academic family. Now, it's interesting. Rabbi David de Sola Pool would go on to study in the University of London, and he held a doctorate in ancient languages, the Summa Cum Laude, from the University of Heidelberg. Very interesting enough. Now, his career was one with many, many different positions. In 1907, Rabbi de Sola Pool was invited to become the assistant rabbi of the famous congregation She'erit Yisrael, obviously the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue located in New York City, which obviously make it the oldest, let's say, Jewish congregation in the United States of America. We've spoken about it before on various occasions. He would go on and serve as assistant rabbi under Rabbi Henry Pereira Mendez, or Rabbi Chaim Pereira Mendez, as we mentioned before, until the year 1919. That would be about 12 years. He left work in mandatory Palestine, but returned to become senior rabbi come of the year 1921, or 2 years later. I think the synagogue at that stage, Rav Mendez would retire in 1920, so he was the most suitable candidate and will come in shortly after. Let's just say he had a very, detailed history of the congregation. Let's just say an old faith in the new world. Rabbi Poole highlighted with satisfaction the noteworthy diversity of the community. I think in a writing of his, probably in no other congregation in the world is there so wide an ingathering of Jews from the four corners in the world of the earth, as it's to be found in She'erit Yisrael synagogue. Throughout the congregation's 3 centuries, its history has been marked by the integration of the elements which have come to it from 60 or more countries of the earth. That's staggering. Within the compass of the congregation, the motto of the country, Ia Pluribus Unum, has happy fulfillment. Now, I think on D-Day during the Second World War, Rabbi Poole delivered these broadcast remarks in support of the brave troops fighting overseas. Now, he would go on to serve as a rabbi until the year 1955. Very interesting. I would be appointed Rabbi Emeritus for the rest of his life. Now, in the Zionism sphere, he was very, very active. He would follow in the footsteps of his cousin, Rabbi Henry Pereira Mendez, and he advocated very much for the Jewish nation, for there to be a Jewish state. He and his wife, Rabbi Tamar, were the leaders in Hadassah's Young Judea youth movement. And Rabbi Tamar, his wife, went on to become the national president of Hadassah, striving there to support for, let's say, Zionism. In 1919, Rabbi Paul took leave of his position and went with his wife to Palestine at that point in time to do relief work. Let's say, assuming charge of post-war relief, this First World War we're talking about, and reconstruction for the World Zionist Organization, an American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee. Rabbi Paul and his wife stayed there 3 years until before returning to his rabbinical pulpit position in New York. Then, unfortunately, the terrible Nazism rose in 1930s. Rabbi Paul spoke out increasingly of the need for a Jewish homeland, calling on American Jewry to action. After Israel's founding, he and his wife Tamar, Rabbi Tamar, were continuously active in support of the new nation. There was various publications he would actually go on to write, she should mention about. He translated and edited the Sephardic prayer book for the Union of Sephardic Congregations in the year 1954, and Ashkenazic prayer book for the Rabbinical Council of America. So he himself was very diverse. I believe these prayer books still today are used in congregations worldwide. His book, The Kaddish, I think, was in 1909. There was a third printing in 1964. Was based on his dissertation and remains a definitive and well-regarded work on the origins of the Kaddish prayer. This is what I'm quoting from Wikipedia. Rabbi de Sola wrote several important books about Jewish history in colonial America, including portraits etched in stone early Jewish settlers, talking about the history between 1682 to 1831, together with his wife, Rabbi Tamar de Sola. This, I think, was printed in 1952. There was an Old Faith in New World portrait of Shearit Israel, talking about the 300-year history from 1654, printed once again around 1955. He would also author work with his wife, Rabbi Tamar, Is There an Answer? An Inquiry into Some Human Dilemmas. This was printed, I believe, in 1966. He co-edited the Parenzo Haggadah for Passover in 1951, I think 1975, and edited prayer books used for the United States Armed Forces. Why I Am a Jew. This was in 1957. And written by leading clerical figures. Supremely well-written introduction to Judaism. He would receive various honors also, especially he would receive an honoris of Doctor of Divinity. It's Doctor of Hebrew Letters, Doctor of Humane Letters, and Doctor of Sacred Theology. He was respected and admired worldwide by many intellectual circles. Pastoral duties with scholarship and public services, let's just say. He was one of the foremost leaders of American Jewry and a world leader of Sephardic Jewry. Now, I believe in the year 2012, the American Sephardi Federation mounted a small exhibition of Rabbi de Sola Pool's correspondence. Now, other positions, he had many positions, including he was the first president of the United Union of Sephardic Synagogues in 1928, president of the New York Board of Rabbis, that was between 1916 and 1917, member of Herbert Hoover's Food Conservation Staff in 1917. He was a field organizer and director of Army Camp of Jewish Welfare Board during the First World War. That was 1917 to 1918. He was also a U.S. representative to the Zionist Commission in Jerusalem, helping implement the Balfour Declaration in 1919 to 1921. Regional director of Palestine and Syria of the Jewish Distribution Committee. That was come at the year 1920 to 1921. 1922 would see him become the founder and director of the Jewish Education Committee of New York. He would become the president of the Union of Sephardic Congregations in 1928 and the president of the Synagogue Council of America. This would be between 1938 to 1940. The chairman of the Committee of Army and Navy Religious Activities of the National Jewish Welfare Board. This was till the year 1947 from 1940. Vice president in 1951 to 1955 and president of 1955 to 56 of the American Jewish Historical Society, and he was a US delegate to the NATO Atlantic Congress in London in the year 1959. Among his family, Rabbi Tamar de Sola was a daughter of Rabbi Chaim Hershenson. He happened to be a thinker and author, early proponent, let's just say, of religious Zionism. He was, I think his wife happened to be a president, as we said before, of the Hadassah Women's Zionist Organization and prominent leader in her own right. His son, Thiel de Sola was a pioneer in the development of social science and a founder of the political science department at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. very interesting. He was very well known in his circles. He had his daughter Naomi de Sola was a physician, Rabbi, and Richard Dick Rothstein, I think his grandson, is a voice-over announcer, reported over. So that's interesting. A bit of information about his family. It's actually chronicled over by him. There's actually a very detailed, let's say, article on the JewishIdeas.org website, actually written. I would recommend everyone to speak about that. It talks about how his time period, how he graduated from university. It speaks about his earlier life also, especially over here, which maybe we didn't touch on so much at the beginning. They talk about that his spiritual home when he was young in this article was a Mildmay Park Synagogue, which is a branch of the Benedict Mark Synagogue in United Kingdom, and really talks about illustrious rabbis and spiritual leaders of his generation and how they were very active in the Spanish Portuguese community synagogue of London. I think Rabbi David's father was the leader in the Mildmay Park Synagogue, and his grandfather obviously was the president of the Benedict Mark Synagogue. Talks about a bit. I think he attended a rabbinical seminary in Berlin, as well as receiving a PhD in Heidelberg University. This article does. I think it's written by Rabbi Angel, if I'm not mistaken. Over in JewishIdeas.org website. Talks about how he came into New York. The congregation was a very wide community. He was an activist on behalf of the newly arriving Sephardi communities, especially from Turkey, the Balkans, from Greece and Syria at that specific point in time. So he really was doing a huge amount of work. The authorship work that he was doing, especially connected to Zionism also, and how he was unique in his time and in place in itself. It's reported over, I think the Jewish Telegraph Agency published an obituary with regards to him on December the 3rd in 1970, which actually was captioned, Rabbi Dr. David de Sola, world leader in Judaism, dies at 85. At that point in time, they would talk about it. The article itself on the Jewish Ideas website, Ideas.org website, talks about how he was highly respected. And, he was a man of dignity, gravitas. He was a part of noblemen, let's just say. Everyone admired him. Obviously, he talks about his distinct British accent, English accent, how it would resonate with many people. And many people looked up to him. They would seek him in his own way. He was enthusiastic Zionist. He was genteel, let's just say. He didn't really want to get so much into political battle, so he was someone that would really look for middle ground at the same time and really honored other people's opinions. He was an unapologetic Jewish nationalist, it says. He was a Bible scholar considered by Talmudists, and he was seen obviously as an Orthodox rabbi with an Orthodox agenda, a time period where the conservative and reform movements were really gaining ground at that point in time. And so many accomplishments from all over, and publications and religious worldwide view, let's say, emanated his life in of itself. And the Western Sephardic tradition very much encapsulated Rabbi de Paul over here. I think in his autobiographies, it talks about his time period as a Spanish and Portuguese leader of the Jewish community, how it says of it, the environment in which I lived was quiet and simple. No anti-Semitism, no migration, no undue struggle, no harsh change of fortune, no world war marred the even tenor of the home in which I grew up in. His synagogue experience was warm and meaningful. He participated actively in services and learned the prayers and melodies with enthusiasm. My own religious experience was happy, integrated, natural and fulfilling. Except on the New Year and the Day of Atonement, my religion did not stress that I was a victim of sin. It's talking about over here. And the community itself and the family, really, which came from valued religious tradition as well as general education. Obviously, he was among educated, prosperous Sephardim, and privileged childhood, it's described of, offered him opportunities what wasn't so available to the young Jewish people, especially growing up in Eastern Europe lands and Muslim lands in of itself. So it really talks about that point in time, and his values of Western Sephardic tradition, let's just say, deep commitment to Jewish religious traditional, intellectual openness, involvement in the well-being of society. And it's actually, I think it's sister-in-law, Dr. Nima Adelblum, it's actually quoted in this article. He's not an orthodoxy enclosed within four opaque walls. It is that of our ancient sages, which stretches into the wide horizon and carries its wholeness and holiness into an open world. It encompasses life in its entirety. It talks about, and there's other. It's a very in-depth article here, so I would recommend everyone to actually read into it now. We haven't got that much time over here. I think in his closing dinner, for example, in 1955, April 26th, of Congregation Sheretz Israel, probably when he was retiring, Dr. Paul reminded his audience, our religion, Judaism, seeks salvation for all mankind. The emphasis of our Bible is on social justice for all rather than on mystic quests of salvation for the individual. That's what's quoted over here in this article. There's so much more we can talk about, but I recommend everyone to look into this article on the Jewish Ideals website. It's maybe we can at one stage in time do a separate video encapsulating maybe the entire article. It talks about his time period, especially in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, how he led the congregations, especially during those different times, different traditions relating to the synagogue, which embody the congregation's tradition, for example, and the communal involvement and social justice activism that they did very much so. Now, he passed away in December 1970 after, and we can learn much more about that, I think, if we read the whole article over here. It's JewishIdeas.org website, actually, is that, and I think it's titled Rabbi Dr. David Sola, Sephardic visionary and activist. It will talk about very much about his time period over there. And he obviously talks about how the traditions of Sheretz Israel came about, and very much closest with Rabbi Dr. Louis Gerstein, if I'm not mistaken, who would be at around the same time, I believe after him on the pulpit of his, let's just say, time period over there. He talks about Sheretz Israel and, let's just say, the other famous rabbis that had a huge chunk of this congregation, especially most notably Rabbi Gershom Mendes Ziakas, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, who actually did a video on at an earlier stage. He happened to be the rabbi of the congregation in the year 1768. So the very, very interesting. Friends, we're a community here. We're learning about famous rabbis. Yes, sir. Yeah. Over here, special edition. We're speaking about the famous rabbi, a Spanish-Portuguese rabbi, Rabbi David de Sola in this special edition over here from Amsterdam. If you descend from any of these famous videos, the same famous rabbis over here, please send me an email. I would love to hear more. If you feel anyone's interested in watching these videos, share these videos also to other people. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing a staggering 7,000 subscribers. So wishing you well, blessings here from Israel, and take care. Thank you everyone for watching. Thanks very much, and be well everyone. Appreciate it.